talk about SQL. Okay, now SQL today. What I'm going to show you, I'm going to straight away go to the actual practical SQL. What I will show you, and this is a document I have here, which I have prepared for you guys. Actually, I used it also for my previous class. So some of the work I will do today is probably already done. So we will try to do it again in a new way. Let me just move this out, and let's make this page width. Okay, and let's move this out. So this is probably better. Okay, so now what is SQL? Okay, so SQL is basically I don't know if any of you have any database or SQL experience. Okay, so basically SQL is structured query language, and it is basically used to interact with a database. Now most of the stuff we see today, most of the applications we see today, including applications like we have test manager and classes. We covered quality center, anything which stores information. Okay, like quality center stores your requirements, your test cases, whatever. Same with test manager does the same, and then whatever application may be there. Okay, that's one type of application of the database, because any kind of information which is stored as data is stored in a database. And other than that, there are databases for lots of other things. For example, your bank holds customer information in a database. It holds the bank transactions of customers in databases. Email servers will hold usernames and passwords and emails in some kind of a database structure. So there's a database pretty much everywhere. Now, what's a database? You can go and read it online. The expectation of this class is that we should at least understand what a database is. I do understand some of you may not, maybe not sure, know what it is. So I would say go to Google, read what a database is, read what a record is. Okay, RECORD. Okay, record is basically a single set of information, related information. Okay, read what a table is. Okay, read what a column or a field is. Okay. All right. So read about that. And now there's different types of SQL. Okay. And when I'm saying different types of SQL, there's Microsoft SQL. Then there's Oracle SQL. Then there may be other types of SQL. Okay. So those are few types of SQLs: MS SQL, PL SQL, T SQL. And each SQL may have some differences or a lot of differences depending on the provider. Okay, but most of the functionality will be the same. You just have to figure out what's the correct statement for doing something in one type of SQL, and most of the major functions will be more or less similar. Now, one more thing to know in SQL, and I just said statement. Now, what is a statement? SQL is basically kind of like a language. So, for every line of code or every line of whatever instruction you're writing, one line is referred to as a statement. Okay, so every statement is basically supposed to end in a certain way. Now, most of the common types of SQLs will take your semicolon as your statement termination specifier. So just remember that some SQLs may not need it. Okay, and we'll just go ahead and start doing some of the basic commands. And of course, I'll give you slides also, which may or may not reflect exactly what we are covering today, because the statements, just like I said, may be slightly different and may also behave slightly different in different types of SQL. Okay. Now, before I actually get into showing you, let me also uh, just let me close this so I can reopen it and I can show you how I opened it. Uh, okay. Yes. Okay. And let me close this. I don't need that. And I think I've closed everything. Okay. So, like I said, now there are different types of SQL. Okay. Now you may see one SQL as your SQL Plus, which kind of comes with the Oracle database. So I have a shortcut installed for the SQL Plus here. Okay, I'm already running it as a system DBA. So all I have to do is just double click on it, and this is basically my SQL Plus where I can you know run my SQL statements. Now it shows here obviously connected to Oracle database and so on and so forth. Okay, so that's one type of SQL. Now for the same Oracle database, excuse me, I can run Oracle SQL Developer. Okay, so I can run it from my, in Windows 8, it's a little bit different. So I always search my applications. So I have the Oracle SQL Developer, which I can also use for doing exactly what I would have done in SQL Plus. I can actually do the same exact operations in Oracle SQL Developer. Why? Because they're both connected to the same database. It's just a different interface. This is a little bit more user-friendly interface, and of course, you can do more advanced level. You can write it longer scripts and everything. I'm not saying that you cannot write advanced level scripting in here, but it's going to be a little bit different than writing it over there. Okay, it's more user friendly over there. Some of the tasks you can just be done by click. Over here, for every task you have to give some kind of instruction. Okay, now that's with Oracle. Now there is also Microsoft SQL. Now Microsoft SQL is basically for Microsoft SQL. Okay, and let me open it. Sorry, let me just Microsoft SQL Server. I can access it by running the SQL Server Management Studio. Okay. Okay, and of course it's connecting to a SQL Server. Okay, so I have the SQL Server. This also looks like the SQL Developer interface. This is of course the Microsoft tool, so it accesses my databases here. Okay, and of course in this one I have a sample database. I have system database. I have the database for QC in here connected to here, because obviously QC is storing its data somewhere. Then I have the TFS data, which is for the Team Foundation server and for MTM. Okay, so for the Microsoft Test Manager, all the data is being stored there. So basically, the point of using this is you can obviously go in and see whatever is going on there. So these are the at least 2 or 3 different ways for working with Oracle and Microsoft SQL. Okay. And of course, the Microsoft SQL also has T-SQL built into it for doing the transactions. Okay. Now, as a tester, you will probably be using some simple queries. You could, of course, do it from one of the interfaces, depending on which database you have. Obviously, you're not going to have both. You're going to have one or the other, more than likely. Well, it is possible to have both. I have both on my machine. So, but more than likely, in any company, you will have just one. Okay, and so your like for example, my QC data is now on Microsoft SQL Server, but it could have been on an Oracle server. So it doesn't really matter. All right. So let's do a few basic commands in a basic SQL window here. Okay, and let's use our document. and let's go command by command and see what each command is. Okay. Now the first command we're going to talk about is the describe command, or the DESC. The describe command, basically what it does is it describes the structure of the table, and when I'm saying the structure of the table, as in what are the different fields. Now again, I asked you to go online and read what is a field or what is a column, but I'll explain to you anyways. I'm just telling you to read online so that you get a more technical definition so that you can speak about it. Okay. So obviously, like for example, let me back up. Let's say let me just create a blank new document. Okay. So let's say you have your address book. Okay. And consider your address book is a database. Okay. It's a collection of records. All right. Now, so it's a collection of records, right? Let's say you have letters A through Z. Okay. All right. Now, for each person, okay, you will have bunch of fields, as in different types of data. For example, name, okay, phone number, address, maybe city, or maybe let's say address has city, zip code, and everything. Let's say email address, and maybe birthday. Okay. So what are these? Name, phone number. These are basically in a database. You can, each of these items is a field, and of course when you're referring to SQL, you call fields as columns. Okay. All right. So for each person, you may or may not put information for these fields. Okay. Each field may or may not have data for each person. That means, let's say for example, okay, that's my name, and then some phone number, whatever, and then some address, and then maybe my email address. Okay, some email address, and let's just my birthday. Let's say it's not my birthday, but I'm just putting something there. Okay, so that's, now this is one person's information. This is one data set or one record. Okay, so that's what a record is. Okay, all right. Now, when I'm saying this whole information is stored in this particular database, now this is one simple database wherein it has only this. Okay, and I can call this particular set, instead of calling this as a complete database. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to make it a little bit more complicated. Okay, I'm gonna say let's say bank database, for example. Okay, and instead of having address book, let's say we're gonna say customer, personal, and I'm just explaining in very simple terms right now, and we'll get into the database, personal information database. Okay, not, I shouldn't say database, I should say table, personal information table. Okay, and that table will have first name, last name, and maybe address, phone number, maybe email address. Okay, okay, that's one table. So let's say table 1. Okay, and that is fields which we will have. Okay, now my database is incomplete without other information. So where do I put all the information? I will obviously put it in other tables, because I don't want all my customer information in one table. So let's say I will have customer security information. So let's say SSN, okay, date of birth, maybe personal password or PIN. Okay, and I can of course have a separate database for separate table, customer security info table. Okay, and I'm giving these long names just for telling you now. You can have shorter names or whatever names you want, but it's always a good practice to use names which will make sense. And of course, in a real table, you don't have spaces in between. So customer, let's say login table may have username, password, and PIN. Okay, so in one database, okay, your database is the bank database. In that you have these tables. Okay, storing different information. Now that's how it is a collection of data. Okay, and each table in itself is again a collection of data, but of a related type. Okay, all right. Now there's two more things which are there called a primary key and a foreign key. Okay. Now primary key basically is more or less like a unique identifier, similar to how you have a serial number, or similar like how we had, for example, when you were writing papers, you couldn't have uh, a number for requirement which is repeated, or let's say for a test case you can't have the same test case ID. So it's a unique identifier for the test case. So same way, each record, especially when you're going to have non-duplicate data, and when you're trying to have connect one table to another. So when you're trying to connect the dots, connect the information, you probably need some way of making sure that unique records are selected, right? So primary key is what? Your primary key is basically a kind of a unique identifier. So for each customer, obviously you will have, let's say, some kind of a unique identifier. Let's say in this case, maybe your unique identifier, you want to call it, let's say, account number. Ideally that shouldn't be the case for security reasons, but let's say for right now we are saying account number. I could also say, instead of doing that, let's say customer ID. Okay, and this customer ID has to be a unique number. It cannot be repeated, it cannot be empty, and it has to be unique. That is why it's a primary key. Okay, all right. Now there's also something called a foreign key. Now the foreign key basically is a way to connect one table to another. So basically you may have a foreign key here which connects to the primary table. Okay, so you could probably call it, let's say, SCID or whatever. This will have a number which corresponds to a number maybe in the CID, for example. So that way, this table knows, or SQL will know, that this table's data is connected to this, and you also this first table. So that way you will have, because let's say if I have in table 1, I have say ID 1, and let's say I have my name, and whatever last name, and then address, and then some phone number, and some email address. Okay, this is in the first table, which let's call it customer personal info. Okay, so how does the other table know, which is your security info, that whatever, let's say my ID, SSN ID is, and whatever my birth date is, okay, let's say, uh, okay, let's say whatever my date of birth is, and some ID has to go there, right? So this number, now if there is this number which connects and tells it that this number is going to be that. So that's how the foreign key will know that this is this customer's information. Okay, so that's the concept of primary key and foreign key, and of course you have to define both, and you cannot obviously repeat. You shouldn't repeat your foreign key, because obviously then you are having. Let's say if I have this line here. Uh, Even though foreign key can be repeated, technically you shouldn't be repeating, because if I have one here again, I have two different SSNs and date of birth. That's kind of not really helping me, right? Because one customer cannot have two different SSNs and date of birth, obviously. So anyways, having said that, uh, so let's now talk about what is this fields. Okay, now we know that this table has these fields or these columns. In SQL, we refer to them as columns almost all the time. I may back and forth refer to them as fields, because having done databases in the past, in the old days, these weren't necessarily referred to as columns. In some other databases, they would be referred to as fields. This is one and the same thing. There's no difference, because I'm still storing data in it. Okay, now all of these fields is basically the structure. Okay, but right now I don't know exactly what this is, so let me just copy it and put it here. So let me now ask you, and you don't have to answer, I can just think in your mind, do you know what a data type is? I'm hoping and I'm assuming you do. What a data type is, and when I'm talking, what is the data type I'm referring to in terms of programming or in terms of database. Okay, so what is a data type? Go ahead and read different types of data, but normal types of data is integer, character, string, sorry, string, and date, and maybe more. Okay, so very basic integer, character, string, and date types of data. Okay, so what does the integer data type do? It stores a value which is of integer type. Character stores a value which is of a character type. Okay, string is basically let's say string, and date is of course date, and so on. Now, of course, this is the full way of writing. In SQL, this data types names will be like more or less like int, char, then there's varchar, then there's date. So that's how you have your data types in SQL. Okay. So having said that, what is this CID? Now, obviously, this CID is some kind of a unique identifier. Now, more than likely, since I'm not going to every time try and come up with a random number or a random combination of letters, I have to have some kind of scheme to have my unique identifier for the family. More than likely, what I will do is I will probably have it set as an integer, which automatically increases every single time. So what I will do is, let's say the CID is of type integer. Okay. Sorry. Okay, and then this f name. Now f name is basically my first name, right? So it will be of type character. So character. So maybe it is character type. Now what is the length of it? Let's say it can accept up to 20 characters. So on and so forth. So that's how the structure of the table will be defined. Okay. Now I've given you some very basic information of what a database is, what a record is, what columns are, what data types are, what's a primary key, and what's a foreign key. Now let's basically start by maybe creating our first table. Okay. All right. And actually, I'll come through this command. Actually, I was just telling you the describe command. I went into the describing your database and everything. So I'll come to the describe command once I create the table. So let's go here, okay, and let's say create and table, and the name of the table. Let's say, okay, what's your name? Okay, let's say we are creating a user. No, let's not call it user. Let's call it my table name. Okay, one. Let's call it my table name one. Okay, and I hope I don't forget about it. But anyways, so what kind of columns you want? Let's say I want the primary key, and I want the first name field, and the let's say last name field. Only three fields for now. Very simple table. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put the name of the primary key field. Okay, every field has to have a name, otherwise and every table has to have a name. Okay, so what we did, create. What are we creating? We are creating a table, and then we are creating a table with the name, my table name. We gave it a name, and then within the parentheses we'll first give the name of the column. So let's call our first column PID, and there's no need for underscore. You can also do PID like that. The only thing you cannot do is you cannot do this. There's no space fundamental when you're naming a column name or a variable. Okay. Anytime you're defining a column name or a variable or even variables, you never have spaces between the name. Okay. So I'm using PID. This way I know that it is some kind of ID. Okay. So always using useful and common sense names helps in understanding what is meant by that particular column and that particular table. Okay. Now I said the name of the first column is PID, but what type of data is it? What is it going to store? Okay, so it is going to be integer. Okay, it is going to store some kind of numbers. All right. Now I also want to make it my primary key. Okay, so what I will do is I will say not null. When I say not null, that means it cannot be empty. Okay, so I cannot have an empty primary key. So I said not null, and then I'm going to say primary key. so that this field is primary key. Then F name is my next field, so I can also call it first name. Okay. Now what kind of type it is? I'm going to make a character type. I'm going to allow a length of say 20. Let me. It's going to be just as big as that. Character 20. Okay, and I'm going to say comma, and then of course the next field, which is let's say last name, again character and 20. Okay. Now of course you might ask me why not null and whatever. So let's just put one extra field just for the sake of understanding. Let's put another number field in there. Let's call it any number, for example. Okay, and let's go in. And now we're not putting not null or primary. Okay, all right. And then I'm going to end the parenthesis which I opened. Okay, and I'm gonna put a semicolon. But before I do that, and this is a very common mistake a lot of people do. A lot of people will forget either to write table, or they may forget to put in table name, and of course they will get an error and they will come and ask what's going on. Okay, so just keep these things in mind. Okay, the other thing is another mistake which a lot of people do. They start this parenthesis here, but they forget to end it here. Okay, and what happens is, like for example here, I have this parenthesis ending for this 20. But I fail to realize that I haven't closed this. Sometimes people mistakenly assume that they've already closed here, but that's not correct. So if I'm ending here, I should always end with another parenthesis. Okay, that's very common, but it's a very common mistake a lot of people make, and then there's an error that we have to figure it out. Okay, of course, if you're very used to using SQL, you won't make these mistakes, and even if you do, you'll figure it out. Okay, so I was adding this other field called AnyNum, and it's int type, and then I'm closing and I'm putting my semicolon. Once I'm done, I'm going to hit enter. Okay, so it says table has been created. Now how do I know if my table was created? Well, very easy. Now this is where one of the things helps us is a describe command, which I was just talking about. Okay, so describe command works like this, and this is the SQL Plus or the SQL Demo. This is for Oracle. Okay, so Microsoft will maybe the table creation will be same, but some of the commands will be different. The describe command is different. Now I cannot go back and forth between each SQL and explain to you every single different thing in all different databases. We're gonna just stick to one type of SQL, which is this SQL, and go with that. But I just showed you how it works. Okay, and you can find out or figure out what you want to do. Anyways, so we created. Okay, what was that name of the table I created? My table underscore name 1. So I'm going to say my table underscore name 1. Okay, so and then of course semicolon, and then I'm going to press enter. So now if you remember, I had PID. Okay, from here I created an integer. If you see, it shows here number. Okay, and it shows by default integers are of size 38. Okay, then I had not null on the PID. If you see under null, it shows not null under PID, and everything else doesn't have it. So other fields can be null. Null means no value. Okay, that there's nothing there. And number means of course this is the data type. Okay, now first name and last name, of course I define them as character of each of size 20. That's what it shows, character type. And of course I should put any number with just integer. I didn't put anything else, so it just says number. Okay, all right. Now let's put in our first record. Okay, all right. Say insert into. This is the syntax of the statement, insert into, and we're going to say okay, which table we are putting in. So we have to say my table underscore name 1. Okay, then we're going to say values, and then we're going to pass the values. So which values we have to pass? We have 4 columns, right? So we can pass 4 values, but we have to remember that PID cannot be empty. Okay, so let me try 1. Okay, and then my name. Okay, and every time you put in character, you have to use these single colon, single or you can call it apostrophe, single quote, and the string has to be inside it. Okay, and then comma, and then my last name. Okay, and then again of course that also has to be in the single quote, and then again comma, and then of course the number, let's say whatever number I want to put. Right now I just added that field anyways, and then close the bracket, parenthesis, end with a semicolon, and it says one row created. Alright, now I have just created one row, and it does tell me that one row was created. Now can I look at it? Yes. So the command for that is select. Okay, now if you want to see information for all the records, sorry, all the columns, you can just say select star, okay, from, and then you say which table, the name of the table. So you will say from my table 1, okay, and then you're just gonna end that. It's a very simple, the most simplest form of select statement. Okay, and by default select, if you do this, it will show all your records. So it shows me the record I just entered. It shows me the column names, PID, first name, last name, any number, and then it shows me the data 1 and my name and whatever number I have put in. Very well. All right, now let's add maybe few more records. Okay, now this statement is going to be an error. Okay, and I'll just tell you after I hit enter why it's an error. Okay, now if you read the error, it says unique constraint violated. Okay, I told you in the beginning that the primary key has to be unique. Why it failed? Because in PID I cannot have a repeated value. So if I put 1 again, it's not going to allow me to enter it, and it's going to give me a violation error. Okay, so it gave me that error. So how do I fix that? Of course, I put in the correct or maybe non-existent, basically I should say. So basically a unique identifier, and then once I click enter now, see one row created. Alright, again we can check whether our record was created. So select star from my table. Alright, okay. Now let's try one more thing, and I guess I hope you can see it. I'm going to basically remove this and now what I did is I removed the 1 and I just put a comma, and then I put the other information, and I'm going to hit enter. Now again this is a violation. Why? Because there's a missing expression. Why it's missing? Because we said PID cannot be null. So if you cannot insert a record which has mandatory fields, like for example PID, and you are leaving the mandatory fields out, fields which cannot be null. So that's why there was an error. Now if I do the same thing, let me just actually move it up the screen so you can probably see it better. Okay, now if I add 3 over there and do it, of course because 3 is not there in the table, then I'm gonna have a successful row creation, and of course I can check it again. Alright, so there you go. So now we have 3 records. Okay, now of course we are doing a very simple select statement here to see all the records. Okay, now there's one more way to see the records. Let's say I don't want to see the PID and I don't want to see the numbers. Maybe I just want to see the first name and last name. So how do I do that? To do that, I will say select first name, comma. So I basically put the column names I want to see. So I say select column name separated by a comma from, and then name of the table from which I want the data. Okay, and this is what I have done. So I'm going to just go ahead and click enter, and now if you see, it's only showing the first name and last name. Alright, okay. Now this is how you choose a particular record. Now what if I wanted to choose a particular record by a certain maybe specifier, let's say maybe the PID or maybe the name. Okay, how will I do that? Okay, now I will specify a condition. So let's say I want to see only Okay, let's first see the all of the records, but let's specify a condition. Okay, so by star I mean show all columns. Okay, so select star from my table name, and then I'm going to specify a condition by saying where. Okay, and I'm going to say PID equal to, let's say, 1. Okay, so if I do that, I'm basically telling SQL to look for PID 1. Okay, and show me all the columns. So it matched the PID equal to 1 and showed me the column names. Okay, of course I could do the same way, but instead of PID, if I did first name. Okay, now I have to make sure that when I'm doing that, it has to be, of course, in the single quotes, and it has to be the same case, otherwise it will not be a match. Okay, now of course I did it in the same case. If had I done it like this with a capital S, it will not show me anything. So this may or may not be true in your type of SQL implementation. You have to basically what I'm trying to say here is you may have to play with your SQL setup a little bit to understand how it's working. Okay, all right. So this is how it's working on this particular setup. This is Oracle. Okay, or Oracle database. All right. So we looked at how to specify condition. All right. Now let's just clear this, and to clear the screen, you have clear screen option. All right. So I've cleared the screen, and I have my table, which is okay. I forgot my table name. I shouldn't do that, but I believe it's that. Oh, I spelled it wrong. Yeah, that's my table. Okay, so now let's say I have these records. Okay, so I have these 3 records. Now let's insert one more record here. Okay. Oops. Oh, what did I do? Oh, I have to. Okay. Oh, missing expression. What did I miss? Okay, let me try this one more time. It should do it, but it's not doing it. Okay. All right. Let me clear the screen one more time and try it one more time. The way I'm doing, but I can cover another command while I'm doing that. So select star from my table. Spell it correctly. Table underscore name 1. Okay. Okay. So I have 4 records. Now, of course, I have this number field as any number 10. Now, obviously, what I'm doing here is I want to change this number here in the last field, in the last column. Okay, and what I'm trying to do is, let's say, the second record, third record, fourth record, all of them basically I want to change, because by mistake somehow I put 10. Let's say it should be 20, maybe 15, maybe 30. How will I do that? So I will go to update. Okay, and then I will say which column I want to update. From table, of course, you will put the table name, and update my name from. Oops, sorry. I have to make sure I'm doing it the right way. Even I forget sometimes what I'm doing. So let's go to update. Okay, this is the syntax right here. Okay, non-delete. I'm not doing delete. Update. Next, there it is. So update table names, that column. Yeah, there it is. I was doing it wrong. That's what I felt. Okay, so update, and then the syntax is name of the table, and we're updating my table name 1, and then which particular column you're setting. So you're going to say set not column, set this any num. Okay, set any num equal to let's say 20, and then of course I don't want to change all the fields. Okay, because let's say if I do this, okay, what happened? Let's see what happened. It updated 4 records. So basically, why am I typing? I can just call my history. Okay, so all the records got updated with 20. So one thing to remember very important is when you're using the update command, you don't want to just give a simple update command. You also always want to specify a condition. How you specify a condition is by doing the where clause. Okay, where did my update command go? Okay, there it is. So what you're gonna do is say where, and then since it's already 20, let's try and change. But we're gonna say where, say first name equal to, okay. So you're gonna specify a condition, because if you don't, and now you see it did only one row, because if you don't, this is what's gonna happen. You don't want that, obviously, because if you do that and you don't even realize that, or let's say even if you realize it, it's not really possible to undo your operations a lot of times in SQL. You have to be very careful in what you do. You don't want to mess the data up. So you want to make sure that you always specify a where condition. In fact, it is always a good practice, no matter which statement you use, even if you're using a select statement. Of course, select statement only shows you the records, but of course you will have so many records that it will always be, in fact, it might not always be prudent to just do select star and show all records in all columns, because there may be maybe 20 columns. You can't fit 20 columns on a page. So what if my table had 20 different fields or 20 different columns? You won't be able to fit. So always specify which columns you want to see, which records you want to see. Be very careful, like I said, with the update command. Okay, so we just did one update. Let's do one more. Let's say instead of name, of course we did that operation. Let's see if that actually worked. So now you see only one record was updated. Okay. If you want to update more, you can go ahead and do that with that update command right here. You can, of course, instead of using, you can specify your own condition, to do whatever update you want to do. Just make sure you have specified a condition, and make your condition robust, because it is possible. Let's say, for example, this particular table had 2 Shakers in it. Okay, doesn't matter what the last name is. The same could happen. There are so many Johns, Jacks, Bills, Roberts, Ahmeds, maybe lots of Dimples also. So who may have different last names, and it's even possible to have the same name, first and last. Like there's so many Stuart William, or even there are 2 George Bushes for that matter. So doesn't matter, and they are in the same family, by the way. So what I would say is try and make a condition as robust as possible, because you want to make sure that whatever where condition you're calling or specifying is calling only specific record or records under purview. And the best thing to do is, before you run your action, see what result you're getting, and you can of course do a select star and then specify your condition, and like this, for example, and okay, and make sure that you have what you're looking for. If you have multiple records and what you're not looking for, then you need to maybe add more conditions to your query, or maybe add subqueries to it. It's too early for me to get into subqueries right now. That's a little bit also advanced SQL. We are just covering today very basic SQL. Okay, so that's how we did the update command. So let me clear the screen, and let's again show my table. Okay, so now, okay, I didn't do the update, I guess. Update my table in the Say I just change it for a minute. Okay, so we have different records to see. Anyways, now we did the insert, we did the update, we did the select, we did the describe. Now let's also look at what was the command I was looking at? Did we look at delete? No, we did not look at delete. Okay, another thing, and the same thing applies to delete. Same way, just like it applies to your you know delete command, and that's why I'm only going to tell you how to delete one particular record, because if you specify it in the wrong way, you will delete pretty much everything. Okay, so yeah, in fact I don't even know if I should teach you the delete record, because as a tester you will never be deleting records. So let's not cover the delete, but it's there in the slides if you want. Be very careful. The delete command is here, it's there. Okay, don't use it as a tester. In fact, let me write here. Is okay. Okay, as a tester, more than likely you will only use select statement more often, and maybe joins and some other stuff. So basically, something called as DML. Okay, DML as in data manipulation language. Okay, you can Google this. Okay, there's also something called DDL. This is data definition language. Okay, the difference between the two is data definition is used more or less to create and create the data, and data manipulation is to more or less modify the data and all that stuff. Okay, of course you can also Google this and learn about it, what it means in difference. It's a good question actually for an interview. What is DDL and what is DML? Okay. Okay, so more than likely you will not be using create, delete, drop, alter, insert, these commands. I've covered insert and update in this. More than likely you will not be using it because technically you're just a tester. But you may use it. It depends. Again, in testing, this is one of the things about testing actually. There is no right or wrong answer in testing for a lot of situations. What is right maybe for me may not be applicable to you in some situations, and the reverse is also true, that something may be applicable to everything and everybody. So it really depends. There's no right or wrong answers to a lot of things in testing. For example, I just told you that you will more than likely not be using it. But what if you end up testing database and the backend? Okay, now we did cover what backend is. We did cover what database testing. So what if you end up doing testing databases? Then of course you might probably be using these commands. So, but very rare chance, and of course we're targeting for you to be as a functional tester. So let's move on. Let's see what all commands I have covered so far and what all I have not. So we covered the describe, and all these things are already here in the. I've already put them from my previous class I took. So this is already there. The syntax is right here. Okay, syntax is how you write the statement. So this is describe command, and then the table name means that you have to put the table name there. And of course, by mistake I've put a colon there. It should be semicolon. Okay. So, but you can see in the example. Okay, and I have my describe, and I have a test table, and I have my field, whatever is happening over there. Same way, all the examples or whatever commands are actually listed on this. Have screenshots of everything. Okay, and of course the select statement we just covered. Okay, the select statement is basically to show your records, and of course this is a simple select statement, the syntax, and I have the example here with the data. Now why it's going in 2 lines is because it cannot fit on the screen obviously. Now we covered that. We covered the select column name from table name, right, by showing only particular column from particular table. Okay, we covered insert how to insert a record. Okay, this is the example. The syntax is over here. Okay, we covered. Okay, what is this? Oh yeah, we didn't cover this option. Let me cover that. Where's my SQL? There it is. Okay, so let's clear my screen. Okay, so I have these 4 records, and let's say I want to insert one more record. Let me just type it actually instead of trying to find it. And of course, you must be wondering how I'm getting my previous. I'm just pressing up and down arrow key. This SQL has built-in history, so I can go back and forth in my history and look at it. So let's say I want to insert into, and what's this insert into? So I'm going to specify. Let's say, of course, I cannot leave PID, so I have to say PID, and then I'm going to say first name. Okay, by doing this, okay, this is the insert into table name. Actually, I have to put table name. I forgot here. Table name. See, that's so easy to forget things. Table underscore. What is my table name? I forgot my table name also. Okay, there you go. My table name, and of course, I'm going to specify which columns I want. Okay, and then I'm going to say values. Okay, and then I'm going to specify the values. So I cannot have 1. I can only have 5, and I know that because I can see my record. Let's say Jimmy. Okay, and then let's end it. So I just instead of just passing all the values, I just passed in 2 values because I only have that much information. Okay, so now this is what my table looks like. Okay, now obviously if I forgot to, let's say I forgot to put this, I can obviously use the update command, and I can go update my table and then set let's say last name equal to whatever, let's say Jimmy Fallon. Okay, where first, let's not call it first name equal to Hamad, where actually first name equal to, of course this is an ambiguous situation if you have 2 Jimmys, so make sure your condition is robust. So maybe you can do and then specify the PID. So make sure your condition is robust. Okay, so we updated 1 row. Let's look at it now. See, we got the name here. Of course, this is still blank. If I want, I can do it. One more thing. Remember, see how I have this what do you call character data. Date is also always written as a character data. Okay, you cannot write a date like this when you're passing in a field or as a value. You have to use these single quotes when you're passing the dates, because of course you have these symbols. So for SQL to understand, and of course you have to make it a date type data. Okay, so we covered this type of insert. Well, okay, let's do delete. Well, you can delete, and I'm not going to do it. Let's just go through this because I don't want you to actually delete anything anytime, anywhere, unless you have to. So delete from, and then of course you put the table's name, and then you put the condition, and then you have to basically, instead of doing that, I would say do a select statement. Okay, so what you will do is select, let's say select star. Okay, let's say select star, all columns, doesn't matter, from my table underscore named 1. Okay, and then give a where condition. By giving a where condition, you're selecting basically that particular record. So let's say where first underscore name equal to forgot the quotes, don't forget the quotes, is Jimmy. Okay, so that is selected. Okay, why we are doing this is when we do delete, I want you to make sure you select not all records, okay, like how we do with select here, but select a particular record with a condition, and then you can delete either by saying uh, delete, or you can just delete and or you can do it this way also, delete from test table where first name is equal to question. So here we did this, so we can delete from there also. Delete, let's say star, no, it's not star. Delete from table. Sorry, my table is going to name one where first name equal to Jimmy. Okay, and I believe everything is good. Yeah, so we deleted one record. So let's look at our table. Always specify a condition, because if you don't, okay. Oh, and let's do this query also. Select star. It will not find it because I deleted that record. So let's now look at the entire table. So that record is no longer there. Now, if I would have done this, it will not let me do it. Okay, I cannot do that. Alright, you can do that in select star. Alright, now let's go and creating a table. Okay, so create to create a table, how you will create it. Okay, we did cover create, right? Okay, sorry, I forgot we covered create already. Let's go on delete table name. Well, this is how you can basically delete a table. Again, it's only for reference. Just read it. If you want, you can practice it. Update command we covered. Uh, okay, there's a between operator which basically works like this. That you select record between, and then in every type of SQL, your between operator may work differently. Okay, and so we just play with these. Are just few examples I have with the tables I have created in the past. So these are just the examples of what happens with the record when I use the between command. And the way I'm using it is select. I'm using the between command in the select statement. So select star, whether that means all column, from table name where this is city, lies between the name of the city and another city, and I'm using the and keyword. Okay, and then of course I didn't find anything there, but then when I did 1 and 3, I was able to find some records, and we can just play with, you can play with it. Let's say you have this data, okay, and see how your SQL is behaving. So select, say, star from my table name one where, let's say, what any num. Okay, let's say any num between, let's say what I say, 10 and let's say again, doesn't matter. Oracle SQL for the statement itself is not case sensitive, so you can type in either way and see it showed me only. And of course, here when I'm doing the between, I put numbers also in single quotes, if you have noticed. So it showed me those two records which have basically when it's saying between, but it's including 10 and 15. Okay. So in some SQLs, what may happen is it may not include either 10 or 15. It will show only things which are actually between 10 and 15. So 11, 12, 13, 14, whatever. So every SQL behaves differently. I cannot give you an answer for every SQL. You have to check your own setup. Okay. All right. What else needs to be covered today? Okay. This one, for this we need to use another table. So I guess maybe let me see which, this is test table. Okay. Okay, clear screen. I don't know if I still have test table on this. Let's see if we have test table. What is a test underscore table? Okay, looks like I still have it. And okay, one thing in SQL is whether I write in small letters my statement or whether I write like this, it's still one and the same. Okay, it's not necessarily true in all SQL. Okay, but more than likely it will be. Okay, another thing is when we are dealing with data, of course the field names also sometimes may or may not, so you have to check your setup how it's behaving, but probably it might not be case sensitive, so more than likely. All right, now let's see. So we have, okay, anyways, doesn't matter. So what I was saying was select star first. Let's see what we have in this table, as I don't remember what kind of data. Okay, so this table has you know first name, last name, city, zip, and PID. Okay, so 5 fields. Okay, uh, let me actually. Okay, let's actually, if we are done here, actually let me open this in. Uh, Actually, let's. I don't know if I can make it any bigger so you can see that. Like, okay, never mind. So let's say select uh, city from. Okay, let me move it so you can see it. Select city from test underscore table. I believe that was, or I think test table one, or was it test table? Okay, test table. So I got these over here right now. It's already kind of you know they are together. But what I can do is I can do an order by city. Okay, and if you see now, it is now alphabetically sorted. And you can of course specify, ascending, descending. You can do all kinds of combinations of statements. So you know that way you can order your data. And this is a very simple query just to show you how that order by works. You could probably use it in a more complicated way, like select first name. Okay, let's do it without. Okay, let's. What is it? First name or F name? F name. So in this table, it is F name. So let's say F name, comma city, and then let me remove this order. Okay. So I have select first name and city from that test table. Okay. So it's going to show me that particular table. And let's say if I do an order by, let me just move this a little bit up here. Order by city. Okay, so just see what happened. Now again, of course, it sorted everything, and it not just it sorted, but it also moved the first name column. So basically it's making sure that the data integrity is maintained. It's not that this remained like that and this changed. Okay, this is alphabetical, and whatever the matching record was there has automatically been moved to that particular location. So that's I guess for today's class we've covered pretty much a lot of basics. We need to do one more class on SQL, which will be on joins. And of course, before I end today's class, let me show you this. Okay, let's look at the Oracle developer now. Let's say I wanted to do some transactions here. So let's see if we have anything here. Okay, so let's see if I have a test table here. Okay, so you can run the commands over here. It will show me whatever is like available or not. So let's say whatever data is not there. One thing good in the SQL developer, and you can achieve this in this command line interface also, but it's a little bit tricky. The SQL developer or in the SQL management studio, what you can do easily is, let's say you want to create table. Okay, and let's say new table 1 2 1 2 3. Okay, PID whatever, int, not, null, primary key, spelling mistake. F name char 20, L name char, let's say 20, and then close it and then enter, and then I haven't executed it by the way yet. And then insert into new table 1 2 3 values, let's say 1, and then I'm going to just quickly put just 2 lines of data. Okay, and insert into, and see when as you're typing, there's one more thing actually. While I'm sure this, you do this, it will actually also suggest what you want to do. Okay, so and everything is color coded. Okay, let's say okay, so I have these 3 statements. Okay, now I can do one thing. I can either go on each line and click on the execute or run statement, so it will run the statement. Okay, so it shows here table is created. Obviously I can here go and say disk new table, describe new table, and then say 1 2 3, and then and then go on that particular statement and run it, and it shows that it's running it, and then it showed me the the result. Now let me actually delete these 2 because I've already run that statement, and let me actually add one more line, new table 1 2 3 values 3 and run. Okay, now I haven't executed any of these. Now instead of going to each line to execute, what I can simply do is go to this button next to it and say run script or press F5, and then when I do that, it see all these statements got executed together. So basically what I can do is I can write the script, then of course I can save my script, and then of course depending on the types of actions, like of course for insert and all you can do that, maybe you can do it for a bunch of other types of queries, and every statement is basically a query. Okay, alright, now let's say the select statement is the same thing here, is just that select star from, what was the name of my table, new table 1 2 3, and then select star, let's say I run it. Now it shows here in the query result what the, so more user friendly interface, some better function options of course, and again it's connected to Oracle and whatever. So I just wanted to show that to you. Let me close this, roll back changes. I don't want to make any changes here. Okay, it is asking me to change my SQL. If you want you can, I'm not saving it. Okay, now let me, and this is your Microsoft SQL. Okay, so let's go to this, and you have this particular table here. Okay, and of course when these, the good thing about these interfaces like this Oracle developer or this Microsoft SQL management studios, you can actually go through the tree structure, the object explorer, and actually scroll, open the tree and see what is what. Okay, and you can actually see all the properties and everything, and you can right click and get a lot of options also, like if you want to see the properties, they will show up here in the properties. So these tools are of course available like in your particular setup. If it's Visual Studio and Microsoft SQL Server, you will probably have SQL Management Studio and so on. And of course if you have Oracle, maybe Java, whatever, you will have the either SQL Plus, or you may have like maybe Oracle Developer, or you may have some other tool to do it. Okay, all right. So and of course here also you can do the same thing. You can write your own query, and then just click on new query, and I'm just waiting for it to load. And then of course you can write whatever query you want, like select and whatever, and then write them and then execute from here. Okay. So, and of course you can have lots of statements, just like we did in the Oracle SQL Developer. You can write lots of statements and execute the whole thing at the same time. So that basically saves some time, and because of doing that, you can actually save some of your regular scripts. Something if you're doing too often with the database, you can just write a query and then save your query. So that's pretty much it. And of course, you can save your query from the this terminal like interface also. You may more than likely probably end up using something more or less towards the Oracle side, but I wanted to show you the commands and how it operations are happening. The same exact thing happens in Oracle. So let me close this now, and let me go